Before we turn it over to Jesse, my name is John, and I'm just going to be your host this evening. So I wanted to welcome you and thank you for joining us as you do every Monday in the Michael's Community Classroom here in the Let's Paint with Plaid paint night. So Jesse is going to be teaching us a fun painting tonight, Amber Glass Buds, I think it's called. I'm not even remembering, but anyway, welcome. I will be in the chat. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in there and I will do my best to convey those to Jesse. And as always, we love having you paint along, but if you find that the pace is going a little bit too quickly, as Raina just mentioned, these classes are recorded. So you can just watch us tonight or watch Jesse tonight and then go back and paint at your own pace later. And so, I guess that's it. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Jesse.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Hey, everybody. Like John said, my name is Jesse Jennings, and I'm a content creator here at Plaid. And if this is your first class with us, welcome. And if not, welcome back. We're so happy that you decided to come back and learn with us. So tonight we're going to be learning, just like John said, Amber Glass Buds, which is a really fun and kind of different one. We haven't really done this technique in the Michael's Community Classroom paint night. So we're doing kind of a faux watercolor using FolkArt acrylic paints tonight. So it's really fun. It's really different, but hopefully everyone will love it. So I'll let you know what supplies you'll need. So in front of me, I have an 8x10 canvas. So just a regular stretched canvas that you can buy at Michael's. I've got my brushes here. So I am using Craft Smart brushes. And I always say this, if you have something that looks similar to the brush I'm using, that's fine. We're just using regular acrylic brushes tonight. Again, we're using acrylic paint and we're going to use it kind of like a faux watercolor technique. So it's going to be a little bit different. So what I have here is a 3/4 inch flat brush or angle brush is fine. Anything that's kind of like this is good. I've also got a number 10 round brush. Again, anything that looks like this one, and I'll continue holding them up as I paint. I have my, this one doesn't have anything on it. It looks like about a 1/4 inch flat brush. And then I have this small number 6 filbert brush. So again, if you got only flat brushes or only, angled brushes, that's fine. As long as you have something that's kind of similar to what I'm using, you'll be good. I also have a pencil here. So the pencil's not 100% necessary, but it will help for sketching out our designs. If you got chalk or, if you don't have anything, that's fine too. I'll show you how to do it with a paintbrush. I've got some palette paper here for mixing my paint like always. I've got paper towels and a water basin. And I also have a hair dryer. So we may or may not be using our hair dryer a little bit. It depends on how wet our canvas gets tonight. So I say whenever you come to one of these paint nights, always have a hair dryer, just because, like John said, we do go at a fairly quick pace. We try to keep within an hour. So we usually do dry our painting as we go. And then of course, as always, we'll be using our FolkArt acrylic paints, like I said, and the colors we have are cinnamon, clover, true blue, and navy blue. So we're going to be using just 4 colors to get all these beautiful colors here tonight. So we'll be doing a little bit of mixing. And I do want to note too, in addition to my, I've got my blue water basin here for cleaning my brushes like I always have. In addition to that, I also have another container of clean water. And the reason is because when we continue to clean our brushes in the water basin, it's going to get really cloudy and really gross and dirty. And we don't want to include that water on our canvas when we're doing our faux watercolor effect. So make sure you can use, any cup you have at home to put some water in, a bowl, a cup, a mason jar like I have here, whatever. We'll mostly only be dipping our clean brushes in it. So just kind of grab whatever you have. And I think that is it for our supplies. So John, any questions on supplies before we get started?
I mean, people were already asking if it's a watercolor, and it is not. It's regular acrylic paint that she is going to be doing a watercolor effect with that.
So it's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be faux watercolor. This is definitely not true watercolor. So if you're a watercolorist, some of the techniques may be a little bit different, but for the most part, they'll probably be similar. But yes, we're gonna be using our regular FolkArt acrylic paints, our favorite paints, just like we always use for our paint nights. But we're gonna be watering them down significantly to get that faux watercolor look. Okay, so let's go ahead and start sketching out our pattern. So like I said, I recommend grabbing a pencil or a piece of chalk or, charcoal, whatever it is you like to sketch with. But if not, you can go ahead and grab one of your smaller tipped brushes and just water down the tiniest bit of cinnamon. I would recommend using cinnamon, and hardly any cinnamon, mostly water, and you can sketch with that instead, okay? So if you've painted with me before, if I sketch out my pattern first, I always do it that way. I water down my paint and then I sketch with that. And the reason I water it down is it's easy to cover up and it's easy to remove quickly. If I make a mess, I can just wipe it off with a paper towel. Okay, but I'm going to be using a pencil. Okay, so I'm going to start by drawing our ground here. So whatever you imagine your vase to be sitting on, whether it's a dresser or a nightstand or the floor, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to draw this. So I'm going to mark it, you know, again, we're going to be guesstimating, no rulers here tonight, about 1.5 inches on the left side, 1.5 inches from the bottom. So I just made a little mark there. I'm going to do my best to make it even on the other side. So I just want to remind everybody, this is a very loose painting, okay? So kind of get your mind in that mindset tonight. It's going to be very loose. You just kind of have to go with it. When you're doing watercolor, even faux watercolor like we're doing tonight, once you put the color down, that's kind of just where it is. So you just have to kind of be okay with that and let it be loose and be okay with where the colors want to go. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're painting. So we're starting off, just keeping in mind it's going to be loose. So I've marked my 2 little places on the left and the right side, about 1.5 inches from the top. And then I'm going to kind of move my finger, try to keep I've kind of got my knuckle right here at the edge, just as kind of a little marker. I'm going to move it and I'm going to mark it again. I'm going to slide it and mark it again. I'm kind of using my finger as a ruler. So now I've got fairly even marks, definitely not perfect, but now I'm going to go ahead and very lightly connect these marks. Very lightly. I don't want to have a super dark pencil line. So here, I'll show you guys. I just did a very light pencil line. You don't want to do it too dark because we want to be able to cover it up. And you can see we're not doing very thick paint tonight. So if you have too dark of a pencil line, it's going to be tricky to try to cover that up tonight. So I am going to go back and I'm even going to remove now with my eraser some of the darker lines. And this is why if you are using paint to do your sketch, hopefully you took my advice and you really watered it down. So again, very light pencil line here for our ground. Okay, so now that we've got that in, we're gonna go ahead and we are going to sketch in our vase here. So I'm gonna mark it here. It's really gonna be about 1/2 inch from the right side. So right here, I'm gonna mark about 1/2 inch, just a little line there. So I know kind of where, maybe further out. So I know kind of where I want my vase to end. So I've got a little mark there. You guys see there, I've got my little mark. So now I'm gonna use my hand. This vase is about the width of my hand. So I'm going to use that as reference. So if your hand is larger or smaller than mine, that is okay. If whatever size vase your vase ends up being is totally fine. So I'm going to put my hand there. I'm going to mark the other side. And that's going to be about the width of my vase here. I'll show you guys here. So now I have my baseline here. I've got my right side marker and my left side marker of my vase. Okay. So now I'm going to continue these lines. I'm going to go as straight up and down as I can. I'm going to go up and down with these lines. I'm just kind of making them a little bit longer, lightly using my pencil to lengthen them. And I'm going to go a little bit down past our ground level here because, of course, it's going to be sitting on the ground. If we had it above the ground, it would look like it's floating on the ground. It wouldn't look realistic. Of course, you're going to be seeing the ground behind the base of the vase. So make sure you continue it down a little bit below that. And then on the bottom here, I'm just going to gently round it. So you can see here how I'm kind of I'm moving my elbow. I'm not moving my wrist. I'm barely touching the canvas, but I'm just rounding that out. So I'm kind of going like this. I'm having my elbow do the bending, not my wrist. My elbow is doing the bending. That's how I'm getting it nice and even. So you should have something like this now. If everybody wants to take a peek real quick, we should be about here in our sketch. Okay, so now towards the top, I'm going to finish out this. I'm going to meet them here at the top. Again, I'm guesstimating. We honestly are about 4 fingers from the ground. So if you have the ground here, about 4 fingers up is where the top of this line is. And I'm going to connect it there. I'm going to kind of connect those 2 lines. So it's flat at the top and round at the bottom. And we are going to round that out. Don't worry. So I'm just going to give everybody just a minute to catch up because I know this is the time where people kind of get tripped up when we're just getting started. I want to make sure everybody has their layout good before we start painting. How's everybody doing, John? Any questions?
Yeah, everyone's doing okay. It seems like cinnamon was a difficult color for people to get their hands on. So I've told everyone in the chat, when we get to the colors, Jesse will help you with how to recreate a color with some others if you don't have that one. So don't worry about it until when we get there. And then,
if you guys get your minds, if you kind of want to just mentally prepare, if you've got brown, like a nice chocolatey brown color, and yellow at home, go ahead and grab those. And I'll go ahead, and when we get to the cinnamon, I'll teach you how to mix it. But go ahead and grab your brown and your yellow, just so you'll be ready.
Yeah. And then just again, as Raina mentioned, if you're not getting a good view of the painting, then make sure you click on speaker view. In the upper right, there's a little view icon. Be on speaker view, because that way you'll see whatever it is that is the focus of the correct thing you should be looking at.
Awesome.
Basically. So I think other than that, we're good.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I'm going to continue our sketch then. So now we have this nice little rectangle here with a rounded bottom. I'm going to try to find the middle best I can. Again, I'm guesstimating. It's not going to be a perfectly, perfect jug, and that's okay. I'm going to kind of find the middle, and I'm going to go about an inch above that, and I'm going to center a little oval. So a very wide oval, just like you would imagine the mouth of a bottle to be. So you can see here, just a very wide oval. I marked it in the center just so I can I always want to find a point of reference. Whenever I'm trying to draw something like this and I want it to be nice and neat, of course, we want to try our best to make this bottle nice and symmetrical, just because that's how glass tends to be. I always try to find a point of reference. That's why I found my center and then I drew my oval. Instead of just trying to guess where the center was when I drew my oval, that would be much harder. So hopefully this helps you guys. Okay, so now that we have that here, we are going to take our sides and we're going to curve them up into the mouth of our jug. So I'm going to start right here. Notice I'm not at the top. I'm starting a little bit lower down, and I'm going to smoothly, I'm going to kind of follow where it's natural, curve this so that I have sort of an S here, and that is going to be the curve of our jug. So you can see here, I kind of started in the middle almost of my line, and I just kind of did it where it felt natural so that I could find that natural curve to meet the edge of my oval there. So just nice and smooth, a nice curve. And I'm going to try my best to replicate it on the other side. And if you don't get it right the first time, don't stress out, because it's tricky to do. And I definitely don't always get it right the first time. I often have to go back and try again. So I'm just trying to mimic the other side. I'm trying to mirror the curve we just did on this side. So it's fairly symmetrical. Okay, guys, so we're looking for something that looks like this. And if it's not exactly like mine, do not stress about it. It is okay. As long as it looks like a vase or a jug to you, then it is good. Okay, so once you have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to erase my excess pencil lines. And if you used paint, do not worry about it. We are going to go ahead and we're going to cover that up. So I'm erasing my excess pencil lines. If you did use paint, guys, I would go ahead now and grab your brush with some water. I would dip it in some water and try to smooth out those excess lines a little bit, just to make your life easier later when we're doing the background. So again, if you were using watered down paint for this part, go ahead and dip your brush in some water and try to blend that out. Try to smooth that out. Almost use your wet brush as an eraser to get rid of those excess lines. So go ahead and make sure to do that too. Now I'm going to use my eraser because I used a pencil. And you can even try to curve the bottom here too. Just kind of curving this just like I was using one of those corner rounders, like if I was scrapbooking, just kind of curve those out. So now we have a nice rounded vase. Everybody still doing okay?
I think so, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so guys, that was the hardest part. That was definitely the hardest part of our sketching. I know, trying to get perfect shapes like that can be tricky and intimidating sometimes, but hopefully that wasn't too hard. Hopefully I made it a little bit simpler for you guys to follow along. So now we are going to go ahead and we are going to sketch in our stems. So for our stems, you can see here, they're super loose. They're just, I imagine they're like pretty wild flowers that someone just picked and kind of stuck into this glass vase. They're very loose and they're very kind of random almost. So I'm going to start with, I'm going to barely hold my pencil. So if you're using a paintbrush, it's the same idea. I'm going to hold my pencil kind of towards the back. So look how I'm holding my pencil. I'm not holding it up here like how you would normally hold a pencil. I'm holding it towards the back here. And the reason I'm holding it there, so I have a very loose grip. I don't want to hold my pencil too tight because I want to have a nice loose grip for these loose lines that we're about to sketch in. So I'm going to hold it up here and I'm going to start, I guess I'll start down here with my stem and I'm going to go up and out. And I have a very loose line there. I'll show you guys. Can you see that line? And then I'm going to do another one going out the other way. And if it's not straight, that's better. That's kind of what we're looking for here. And then another one up here. And you can do as many of these as you'd like, you guys. And then I'll have one that kind of sticks out this way. You can even have some branches coming off. So you see how loose that is, you guys? Super duper loose. Okay. All right. Seems like everybody's doing really well. I'm glad.
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, cool. All right. So that is really it for the sketching part. From now, we are going to start doing our painting. So good. I'm going to give everybody just a second to make sure everybody's caught up with their sketch. Because I don't want anybody to get behind. So just a minute to everybody make sure you're done with your sketch. You've got all the lines that I've got before we start painting. I will tell you guys though, if for those of you who were not able to find cinnamon, like I said, go ahead and grab your brown and your yellow. And I would start with a very small amount, just like I always say to do, so we can kind of figure out the color. I wish I had some in front of me, but I don't. It's okay. I would start with a very small amount, even parts. So like a chocolate brown and a yellow, I would start with even parts and see what that gets you. And if it's still kind of dark, add some more yellow. If it starts to get too yellowy, add some more brown. It's really as simple as that until you have this nice sort of ochre golden color. So hopefully that helps you guys who weren't able to find the cinnamon. Okay, guys, so we are going to start by, we are going to go ahead and start painting our painting. So I am going to go ahead and start with the cinnamon. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of it on my palette. And I'm just going to tell you guys, since we're watering it down, we're going to be using very little paint for this. Since we're doing this sort of faux watercolor technique, we are going to be using mostly water. We're basically going to be tinting our water with acrylic paint. It's going to be very little paint that we're using tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my, this is, oh, it's not marked. It's like a 1/4 inch flat brush. You can see here, maybe 1/2 inch flat, about this size. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab my clean water. So I'll let you guys know when I'm rinsing my brush in my dirty water and when I'm dipping into my clean water. I've got my clean water here and I'm going to start putting that onto my, I'm actually going to move this so it's closer. I'm going to start putting this onto my palette here. So you can see my water starting to puddle here. And now I'm going to dip into a little bit of the cinnamon and start sort of tinting that water. Can you guys see that? Hardly any paint. I'm just tinting this water that I put onto my palette. If it be a little bit darker, I'll grab a little bit more paint. And you want to start really light. Whenever you're doing anything like this, whenever you're doing some sort of water medium like this, some sort of aqueous media, whatever it is that you like to use, including watercolor, you want to start very light and then build it up. If you start with a really dark color, it's hard to remove. It's not like acrylic painting, you know, how you would typically paint with acrylic painting. We could just paint over it. It's hard to do with watercolor because you really want to get that nice transparent effect. So it's hard to go back and paint over it. It's not terribly forgiving, but that's why we just need to forgive ourselves instead, because the paint's not going to forgive us. Okay, so we have this nice watered down cinnamon. And we are going to start by just very loosely painting this in. You can see how light it is on my canvas. You guys see that? By painting this in on our vase. And I'm going to be kind of messy with it. You can see I left some white gaps here, you guys. You see those white parts? I really want to make sure to include those because those are what's going to kind of appear to be highlights. That kind of looks like it's shining parts on the vase. So really, I just left raw canvas showing through. So I'm going to be very loose. You can see I'm kind of doing this like scrubbing motion. I'm getting some of that graphite onto my color, and that's okay. It's just darkening it along the edges, which I kind of like. And I have a very watered down cinnamon, mostly water. with just a tint of cinnamon in it. And again, I'm going to try to leave some of those open areas just like I did in the original. So I really like how that looked. And do some brush strokes here. You guys see how I'm doing these really messy brush strokes? I have hardly any paint. I don't really have very much water on my brush either, to be honest. But I'm going to leave in some of those white areas. I can always go back and cover them up, but I can't get those white areas back. So don't forget, you can always go back. If you leave canvas showing, you can always go back and cover it up, but you can't uncover it once you put paint on it. So make sure, be more generous when you're doing things like that. If you want some white areas showing, leave a lot of white areas showing. You can always go back and cover it up if it's too much. Okay, so now we're going to move around a little bit because you want our paint to dry. Also, something to note too, when you're doing this, again, sort of faux watercolor technique, sometimes it can be hard to dry it with a hair dryer because it's so wet. So the hair dryer is going to want to blow your paint everywhere. And we don't want the water just blowing across our canvas because that ruins all the beautiful, you know, colors that we've put down very strategically where we want them to be. So we're going to try not to use the hair dryer. I'm sure I will end up using it, but I'm going to try to let things dry for the most part on their own so that they can kind of really grab onto the canvas and they won't start blowing around with the air. So that said, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to start painting the ground here, whatever you're imagining this sitting on, that's what we're going to paint now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some of my navy blue. I'm going to grab just, again, don't forget, you don't need very much at all. So just a touch of navy blue, like the tiniest little dollop. You see that? Like hardly any. And I'm going to put a ton of water down again, same way we just did our cinnamon. I'm gonna put lots of water. And again, I'm dipping into my clean now. I cleaned my brush off in my water basin, but now I'm going to dip into my clean water. And I'm going to grab just a touch of the navy blue.
Hey, Jesse, would a low setting heat tool work to dry so that you don't get the air blowing around, but you do get the heat, you think?
Yeah, I will. You know, heat guns definitely don't put out as much air as a hair dryer, but they still do put out a good bit of air. So again, I really just recommend to just let it like sit, even just for like 5 minutes, you know, just because then it'll really start to absorb into the canvas. And then you can go with like a heat tool or even a hair dryer at that point. You just want to make sure there's no like water pooling on your canvas when you go to dry it. But even now I can see there's really, we didn't use very much. There's not really any water pooling anywhere. So I probably would be okay using either one of those tools at this point.
Yeah. It's amazing how it already looks like glass. I mean, it was just like the first step and already we're on our way.
I'm glad you think so.
I mean, that's why you're the teacher, I guess.
Well, I don't know. Okay. All right. So now we've watered down our navy blue. Again, it looks dark on my palette paper here, but it's really like I barely put any paint in it. It's mostly water. It's just a very dark color. So it's really, you know, it's really overpowering the water. So I have this on my brush and I'm going to start here on the left side of my jug. I'm going to try not to touch my jug, especially if you have a lot of water going on there. As soon as you touch it, it's going to create a river and all of that cinnamon is going to go into your blue and all of that blue is going to go into your cinnamon. So if I have any watercolor artists out there, you know exactly what I mean. I'm sure there's some sort of technical term for it, but I don't know it. So again, if you have lots of water pooling here, make sure not to touch that with your brush. You want to be really careful to go right up to it and not touch it. So I'm going to start with the side to side motion. You can see here how light it is and we can build that up. I'm going to go across the top of our line. I'm not going to fill in the whole thing. You can see here how we have it really dark at the top. I'm following that for now. I'm going to put in, you can kind of see too, once you get it wet, you can dip into some water and kind of dab it. And it kind of just goes right. It absorbs that water. The water wants to go where you already put it. And that's why I say it's faux watercolor, because it looks like watercolor. And a lot of the way we're painting tonight is similar to how you would paint with watercolor. It's definitely not true watercolor. It doesn't act just like watercolor would, but it is really similar. Okay, so now I've got there. This is my navy blue. I just touched it in right there. And you can see it looks kind of cool. And that's because we're going to go back and we're going to add some other colors. So right now it's very blue. But we're gonna go back and add some of our cinnamon to that too. That's why it looks much warmer in our finished one. So just like I said, I'm gonna dab my brush on my paper towel. I'm not gonna clean it, but I'm gonna dab in my paper towel till it's, you know, I get most of that moisture out. And I'm gonna pick up a little bit of my mixture here of my cinnamon water, and I'm gonna go back over it with some cinnamon. We're just going to continue to add colors in here until we get the color that we want. Okay. All right, so it's getting a little bit more neutral now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grab some of my true blue. So this is just a nice bright blue color. And again, I need very little. And I'm going to just keep doing the same thing. Make sure there's no dirty water on my brush. And I'm going to grab some water from my clean water container. Make sure to always be grabbing clean water. You don't want to be grabbing muddy water. And I'm going to grab the tiniest bit of true blue in there. We have this nice bright blue here now. I don't want too much water on your brush. So I'm going to touch that into there as well. And it's getting pretty wet there. So I'm going to do this and then I'm probably going to leave it for a minute so it can kind of start to soak into the canvas. It's getting a little bit too wet for me. And if you have a lot of water there and you feel like it's way too much, go ahead and dab your brush off on your paper towel. And then you can kind of use your brush to absorb some of that water. Pick it up just like a sponge and dab it onto your paper towel. So I'm picking up water, it's absorbing into my brush and I'm dabbing it off. And that's just, you know, getting rid of some of that moisture. If you have too much and it's kind of just wanting to like move all over the place, you can just remove some of it that way.
Jesse, we did have a question where someone was having a little trouble with the paint going onto the canvas because it's so watery. It was just sort of like bubbling up. You know what I mean? Like maybe that's because the canvas is coated, or
yeah,
what do you think?
possible. So whenever you buy a canvas at the store, they're always coated. So these are the ones that I recommended on michaels.com. And like I said, anytime you buy a stretch canvas from any sort of art store or craft store, it pretty much always has gesso on it. So I always show this example. You can see here on the back, this is the raw canvas. It's basically fabric. And on the front, it's white and smooth. And that's because it's gessoed at the manufacturer.
Okay.
So usually it is not a problem when you're doing things like this, creating washes and such, and it'll absorb. But if you really are having a problem, you might have bought some kind of canvas that has extra coating on it. And in that case, I would recommend putting a coat of white chalk paint on and letting that dry completely and then trying this painting. So I'm sorry that's not working for you, but hopefully you can paint it with us later on. Like I said, grab some white chalk paint. FolkArt home decor chalk is great. And put a coat of that on there because it'll make your canvas really matte and it'll help absorb the paint better. Let it dry and then come back and watch your recording and paint along with us.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Alrighty. Okay, so now I've got that nice dark area in there. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna add some of this darkness over here. So you can see here, we've got it cool over here and then it's much warmer on this side. So I'm gonna go ahead and I've got my brush nice and clean. I just went ahead and I rinsed it in my water a little and dried it. I'm gonna pick up some of my navy blue from my actual paint puddle. And I'm gonna place it here. I'm gonna dab it off because I don't wanna get that in the rest of my paint. And then I'm gonna pick up some of my cinnamon. And I'm mixing the two colors of paint now, not the watery paint, but the actual paint itself. Get this nice dark brownish color. And I'm gonna carefully set my brush down and I'm gonna grab some of my Clover. So this is a nice medium green color. We use this color a lot in our paint nights. And I'm gonna grab a little dab of that and include it as well. And you can see, like, I don't know if you guys can even see that, but gosh, I'm barely using any paint. Can you see that tiny dab of green at the top? Like hardly any paint here because we are watering it down so much, you hardly need any. Okay, so now I have this nice like dark brownish green color and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clean all that excess paint off my brush because you want it to be nice watery paint. And I'm gonna grab some water and water it down here right next to it.
The true blue, someone was just asking, the true blue was the second blue that you added, the brighter one.
Right.
Yes, to shadow area on the left.
Correct. Yep. We started with our navy blue, and then we added in a little bit of the cinnamon, and then we went back with our true blue and
So we did, yeah, both navy and true blue.
Correct. Yep. We used both of the blues in that one. Okay. So I went ahead and I have my mixture that is navy blue, cinnamon, and clover. You can see it's like a nice muted neutral tone. And we watered that down, and I'm adding it in here on the right side of my vase. And I'm going right up until that nice blue that nice blue shadow. But I'm not painting over it. It's overlapping ever so slightly, but that's okay. But we are going right up until it. And I'm kind of just going to let it fade out down here. And I'm going to dab my brush, my paper towel, pick up some water, and sort of let that blend out over on the left side. Picking up some clean water to blend that in over there. And now we have this like nice watery colors on our palette is where it really starts feeling like watercolor. So I'm going to pick up a touch of my watery true blue over here and put that in there. Okay. So now we are going to go ahead and we're going to let this bottom part dry. I'm happy we have lots of neutrally, different tones going on. It's not as dark as our original, but we want to let it dry so we can go back and add some darker colors later if we want to. Okay. So we are going to go ahead and we are going to start adding some more details to our vase. So now my vase, I don't know about you guys, but my vase, since the paint was so thin, is already dry. Can you guys hear that? It's nice and dry already. It's perfectly, like it's super dry to the touch. It's not wet at all. So if yours is still a little bit wet, you can go ahead and grab a hairdryer. Try to avoid blowing down here on the bottom where we just painted, but just hit it with a light hairdryer. I would do the hotter setting. If you have the cold blaster, I would stay on the hottest setting and just try to aim here. You could even grab, a napkin and cover this part up if you needed to, and just dry that. But mine is really dry, so hopefully yours is too. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna switch brushes now. I'm going to grab this little guy here. So this is a number 6 filbert brush, but if you have a small round brush or even a small flat brush that has like sort of a taller bristles like that, then it will work for what we're about to do. So again, a liner brush or a round brush will work for this. But I've got this little guy. And we are going to, since we're using acrylic, we're not using watercolor. This has already started to dry, just like our painting. I need to add some more water there. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some more water. It's kind of gonna reactivate that paint that was starting to dry on our palette. I'm gonna pull in a little more pigment, so a little bit more paint. Kind of darken that up a little because we did the really light layer, but now I'm gonna go back with some of those darker, more dramatic golden tones. So I'm gonna grab some more of that cinnamon color or ochre, or I saw some of you saying you had burnt sienna. That's gonna be beautiful as well. Like I said, you can mix brown and yellow together to get, something similar that will give you the same idea, the same illusion of amberglass.
So for those of you who don't know what palette paper is, it's just like basically like a wax paper, and you can buy like a whole pad of it at Michael's, and it's really convenient because cleanup is super easy and you just crinkle it up and throw it away when you're done, and you don't have to use like a glass or a wooden palette or anything like that. It's like basically wax paper kind of.
Yeah, and if you're, I definitely recommend grabbing yourself a book of palette paper, especially if you are someone who uses like paper plates or something at home and you're worried about waste. The palette paper is definitely less wasteful. But if you've got like a regular palette, that works too. But I love having palette paper. It's super easy to use. Like John said, for my next painting, I'll just pull it off just like a piece of notebook paper and toss it. And I have a whole fresh palette for my next painting. It's really easy. And they have that in the fine art section at Michael's.
It comes in all kinds of sizes. Yeah, I'm sitting here. If you ever watch Andy paint, he uses this giant one.
Well, actually, you can see here, this piece of paper that I'm messing with my palette, that I'm working on is actually one of Andy's pieces of palette paper I'm using to protect my table. So you can see how much bigger Andy's is than mine. Okay, cool. So now I've pulled some more paint into my water here. just because I want it to be a little bit darker. I definitely want it to be darker than that. We're gonna start doing some layering. So I've got my little brush here. I'm gonna start on the bottom. I'm gonna start around the edge, and I'm just gonna add some, kind of start shading in some darker areas on my little jug here. I'm going around the bottom edge. I'm just kind of darkening it. Going right on the bottom. I'm gonna go all the way up around the entire edge lightly. You can see in my final painting, some areas I was trying to think of like where the glass would be very concentrated, because that's kind of where it's going to be darker. So like on the bottom, you kind of be seeing the base through the glass, and so it may look darker. And up here at the top, all this like, you know, close together glass up here will make it look darker. So I was trying to think about that as I was painting it. And I'm just going right around the edge, you guys. Right now, I'm just kind of following the edge that we've already created, following that shape. Darken up some of those areas to kind of make them pop and make them a little bit bolder. Okay, this is starting to look good. So now using the same color, I'm going to kind of sketch in. I've got these sort of like ribbed areas on my vase. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sketch in. I'm going to try to do my best to segment it into, you know, 4-ish equal parts. So the base of the jug will be 3 equal parts, and then the neck and the opening will be another part. So I'm going to start here about maybe 1 inch from the bottom, and you want to follow this curve. So you want to follow the curve of the bottom, because we've already set the tone for that shape. So whatever your curve looks like, you want to follow that curve. If your curve looks different than mine, don't follow my curve. You want to follow whatever your curve looks like at the bottom. So we're just going to mimic that right above it. Then do it again, right above that, about another inch above it. And then about another inch above that, maybe a little more than 1 inch, but it's okay. So we have it segmented like that. And so now you can kind of go back and, you know, touch up and see if it looks straight to you. A lot of times when I'm doing things like this and I want to be nice and even, I'll hold my canvas up in front of me. Be careful before you do that, before everybody jumps up and holds their canvas. Be careful that your painting isn't too wet. You don't want to start dripping. But a lot of times with things like this, I like to hold it up in front of me. Okay, and then I'm going to add some more of these to the neck, right up here at the top. I'm going to add just a couple stripes of that, because we're going to start, again, adding more color and blending in some of these areas. Okay. So it's starting to come together. Hopefully you guys are liking what is going on your canvases at home, if you're painting along. Alrighty, so now I'm going to start adding some darker tones to this. It's still a little bit wet, and that's okay. We want to start adding some different values. So to do that, we're going to start adding some blues and maybe even some greens to it to kind of start giving it some balance. Whenever you use something I like to do or like to think about in my paintings is when I'm doing something like this and I'm trying to make it look a little more realistic, you want to include, if you use, you know, one color in one part of your painting, you want to try to include it in other parts of your painting. You don't want to have just cinnamon on the vase and just, you know, green on the stems and just blue on the bottom, because it's not going to look very balanced and it's not going to look very realistic. In real life, color is reflecting off of everything all the time. So if, you know, you have a blue table and you have your vase sitting on here, there's going to be a lot of blue that's reflecting into that vase. Even if it's amber glass or some other colored glass, there's going to be a lot of blue going on in there. If you have green buds in the middle and green stems, going into it, you're going to be seeing green in that vase as well, especially with reflective surfaces like that. There's always going to be lots of, you know, different colors reflecting off of each other. So you want to make sure to include those colors in all of the areas you're painting to give it a little bit more realism. So just something to think about when you're painting in the future. If you felt like maybe your colors weren't looking realistic, try adding some colors to other areas that you may not have thought of before, and that might help. So that said, we're going to start adding some blues and some greens to our glass here. So I've got my brush. I just rinsed it off, so it's still wet, but I just rinsed most of that color out of it. I'm going to pick up some of my watered down navy. I've got my navy here that we've already watered down, and I'm just going to start very gently. I'm not going to put a ton, kind of touching it here on the right side. I'm kind of like dabbing it in because it's still wet there. I'm going to start dabbing it in there and just darkening that a little bit. Just on the right side for now. You can I'm gonna add a little more navy to my water, to my watered down navy, just to make it a little bit darker. I want to dab off some of that excess navy. I'm just ever so gently placing that into the right side. I'm going to go along the bottom right here as well. Okay, so we're starting to darken it. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to continue it just on the right side of my little ribs here as well. And that's going to start adding reflections and making it look more round. So just gently adding it into the ribbed areas. I'm going to start adding it into my top as well. So for the top, we're going to kind of go all over. We're going to add it on the left and the right because you really want to darken that up. Because of course, like I said, there'd be a lot of concentrated glass there. There'd be, you know, the front, you know, panel of glass and the panel behind it really close together. So it would look darker. Kind of going where I went with my ochre earlier, blending it in. Don't forget this area. Just adding some darkness and kind of blending it in with where we had our cinnamon. Start to darken it up. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse my brush off. And I'm going to grab some of my clean water and I'm going to start watering down some of my clover. So clover is this nice medium green color that we're using. So if you've got like a medium green or you know, classic green is another great folk art color. Anything like that will be fine for this. So we just want a nice medium grassy green color. So again, I'm watering it down just like we've been doing, making sure that there's no clumps in there, nice and smooth. And then I have a ton of watery green, so I'm going to dab some off on my paper towel. And I'm going to dab while it's still wet, you guys, just a little bit of green in there, just the tiniest bit while it's still wet. And that's just going to give it another layer of color. You don't want to make it green, you know, you don't want to totally change the whole color of what's going on here. So that's why we're just adding a little bit. If it gets too green, we can go back and add some more navy to kind of neutralize that. We just want to continue adding more color. And this is going to be, you know, where we're kind of seeing the stems reflecting. So I feel like I've got a little too much green, so I'm just going to pick up some of my navy and kind of go back because I didn't want it to look so green. So I'm just going into my watered down navy. I'm never going into my just pure paint for this painting right now. I'll tell you if we are. If I say color, it means we're always going down into the watered down version of it. Maybe I'll even pick up a little bit more of my cinnamon just to kind of neutralize that if it's getting too dark for you. I'm gonna go back into my cinnamon. I'm gonna blend these edges so they're not quite so sharp. Just again, dabbing my brush off, picking up some cinnamon, just blending the edges so they're not quite so sharp. Again, always offloading my brush onto my paper towel with clean colors. We're starting to get a lot more dimension here. Okay, so I'm gonna rinse my brush off and kind of start fresh. How's everybody's looking, John?
I think we're doing okay. Everybody doing all right with your vase so far? Yes.
A lot of chat. I feel like that's a good
There is
sign.
a lot of chat.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. So we're gonna add a little bit more darkness down here. So now my bottom is nice and dry. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna darken this a little more. So hopefully your bottom is dry. And if it's not, go ahead and dry it with your hair dryer for just a moment. So I'm gonna pick up some of my True Blue. I still have some watered down True Blue here. So I'm gonna pick up some True Blue and I'm gonna put it into kind of its own separate little puddle over here next to it. And I'm gonna put a little bit of my cinnamon into it as well. Oops, there's a lot. So I'm gonna add some more True Blue. Got a little crazy with cinnamon. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add that here to make it a little darker. So what the cinnamon does with the True Blue is it just kind of neutralizes it. That blue is super duper bright. And when we add the cinnamon to it, it's a very neutral color. And it's kind of orangey too, if you'll notice. It's a little bit orange looking, which if you guys have knowledge of the color wheel, blue and orange are crossing each other on the color wheel. So when we add this nice orangey, yellowy brown color, it's going to neutralize it because whenever you mix two colors on the color wheel that are crossing each other, you're always going to get brown. So there you go. I just added a little bit more darkness there and I like that a lot better. So now I'm going to rinse my brush off. And I see people saying pause. So we're just going to pause for just a minute.
Let's just give a couple of minutes to let people catch up.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. And I think everyone, because I know that Rand put the links in several times in the chat, so you can you guys can go back and see it. But essentially, if you go to the page on Michael's website where you signed up for the paintings, you can see the past classes, and then also on their YouTube channel as well.
Awesome. Michael's has so many good classes. I'm sure you guys have seen them all because obviously you found your way here, but I mean, Michael's has a class for everything. If you want to craft it, Michael's can teach you how to do it. They have so many, and it's awesome that they're all free. Like they have some of the best stuff on there.
They do. Oh, and while we're pausing for a second, why don't I give a quick shout out and a commercial to our Facebook page over at Plaid. If you go to Plaid Crafts Facebook page just for all kinds of general instruction, but if you're specifically interested in painting, we have a group, Let's Paint with Plaid. It's a Facebook group, and there is a lot of content. Andy Jones, who teaches in this classroom every so often, is in there twice every week doing a lunch and learn every Tuesday and Thursday. Jesse paints in there from time to time. We have all sorts of just content that we are posting in the group. So I would encourage you, if you're interested in painting, to check out Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group.
It's a lot of fun. Everybody's so nice in there, and there's different artists from all experience levels, whether this is your first painting ever or you've been painting for decades. We've got all kinds in there, and people are just so encouraging and so helpful. If you have a question about your painting, or if you're looking for feedback, or even if you're just looking for people to say, hey, beautiful, good job. It's the best group of people in that group. So make sure to check it out.
Yep. And then our regular Facebook page, we do craft breaks all the time, and you'll see Jesse on a bunch of those. You'll see Emma on those. You'll see Kirsten and Kira, all kinds of people who you may know from this Monday evening. They are there all the time.
Yeah, we have lots
on Plaid's Facebook page. So
awesome. All right, guys. So hopefully you had a chance to catch up while we were giving our little spiel there.
Yes.
And we're going to move on to our flowers and stems. So for this part, we're going to be using a little bit more concentrated paint just because you want to get nice bold lines there. So we're still going to water it down a little bit because we don't want it to look so different from the rest of our painting. But we're going to give it a little bit, we're not going to water it down quite as much just because we want to get some more of that bold color in those areas. So that said, I have some navy blue, some true blue, some Clover on my palette already. So, and of course I have my cinnamon as well, basically all the colors. If you're missing any colors, if you've used them all, go ahead and add some more to your I can't think of any words, to your palette now. Don't add it to your canvas. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna grab my number 6 filbert brush again, which if you have a liner brush, that's great too. It's probably even better, to be honest. But this is the one we were just using to paint our glass. So go ahead and grab that again. And I'm going to grab some of my just straight paint, my Clover, a little bit of that, and a touch of navy. And I'm going to mix those together on my palette. And again, I'm using just the straight paint this time. I'm not using the watered down version. So it got a little dark, so I'm going to grab a little more green. I'm looking for just a darker green, just not so bright. And then I'm going to add a tiny touch of cinnamon, just to make it a little bit warmer. Okay, so that's a nice pretty green now that we've got. You're looking for something like that. I don't know how well you can see color in Zoom, but hopefully you can see it fairly well. Something like that. Okay, so now I'm going to rinse my brush off. I always say this whenever I mix paint with my brush, I always rinse it off before I actually start applying paint to my canvas. Make sure I get most of that water out. So I'm going to pick up my nice green mixture here, and I'm going to put, I guess we should put a little water in it first, actually. Rinse my brush again, grab a little bit of clean water, not nearly as much as we've been doing, just a tiny bit, and I'm going to mix that into my green mixture here. Not as watered down, but still watered down a little bit. Okay, so I have a little bit of that nice watery mixture, and I'm going to start with my stems. So we're going to kind of do this just how we sketched them out before, but now we have that nice sketched line that we did with our pencil in the beginning to guide us. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm going to hold my brush very loosely, just like we held our pencil. And I'm going to follow it up, and I'm going right over my glass here, guys. And I'm not pressing down very hard, but I'm following those lines that we made earlier. And I kind of like it how you get different widths. So depending on how hard you're pressing, if you press lightly, you get thin lines. If you press harder, you get thicker lines. You can have lots of fun with a liner brush. Just following these sketched lines that we made earlier. Okay. Got something that looks kind of like this. Maybe I'll do another little one coming down there. Maybe another one coming up there. And again, keeping it light. So now we have this nice glass look. And since we watered down that green a little bit, it looks kind of transparent. So your eye can't really tell whether it's in front of the glass or behind the glass. And since it's a vase, your eye kind of just wants to assume it's behind the glass. So super easy to do. You don't have to go back and paint that vase on top of the stems. Just because we add that little bit of water, everything's a little bit transparent, and your eye just kind of assumes the order of the things that you're seeing. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. Maybe everybody just a second to catch up. Okay, so I've got still the same brush here. I'm going to pick up some of my green paint, and I'm not going to pick up the watered down part. I'm going to pick up where we mixed it originally. It's a little bit watered down, not a huge deal. So just a little bit more. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start adding some leaves, some little leaves to my stems here. So to do that, I'm just going to do little motions with my brush, and I'm going to use the whole, all of the bristles of my brush to create the shape of the leaves. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So I'm going to start here right on this one so you guys can see. I'm going to draw 2 leaves at the top. I'm going to smush my brush on the left, and I'm going to smush my brush on the right. So super technical. We're going to be doing some brush smushing. So I'm going to start here. I'm going to do a couple more down here on the left, maybe one on the right. I'm going to continue doing that all along my stems here. You can do them where they match up and you always have them side by side, or you can do them, you know, a little more random. It's totally up to you, but I'm going to do a little bit of brush smushing.
Which brush are you using for your brush smushing?
we are still using the same brush we were using to mix it. So this is I have my number 6 filbert brush. If you've got a liner brush, that will work great for this too. Honestly, probably better. So it's the same brush we use to paint our glass. We haven't changed brushes.
Okay.
So I'm doing a little bit more brush smushing. So I'm kind of, you know, I'll hold it up closer to the camera. I'm kind of touching the tip down and then the rest of it. So touching the tip down and then the rest of it. So it lines up with my stem. Tip down, smush, tip down, smush. And you get these nice, you know, fairly consistent leaf shapes without having to do all kinds of fancy brushwork. Just some smushing. Nice and loose again. Don't forget, we want this painting to be nice and loose. I have these really pretty stems now. And I'm actually going to do some at the mouth of my vase here. Hopefully you guys can see. And now you can go back too, and you can add a little bit. I haven't cleaned my brush off. I'm going to pick up a little bit of my cinnamon. You can just kind of dab it into some areas. And this is kind of going back to what I said before. When you have one color in one area of your painting, you know, if you've got shiny leaves here, it's going to be reflecting some colors around it. So maybe some of your cinnamon is being, some of the, you know, amber color from your vase is being reflected in these leaves. So it just helps to give your painting some unity. It just really helps to connect everything and make it feel more complete. I'm gonna rinse my brush off now and give you guys just a second to catch up. It's starting to come together.
Yeah.
All that's left is painting our flowers, and then we're going to be doing some backgrounds. Super exciting. Okay, so I still have the same brush, guys. I have not changed my brush. I'm going to mix a little bit, again, just straight paint this time. I'm not going to be watering it down. A little bit of true blue and navy blue. So we get kind of something in the middle. Not too bright, but not too dark. A nice medium color between those two. And we're going to continue our smushing technique for the flowers. So I'm going to kind of, you know, pay attention to work with my leaves, and that's where I'm kind of concentrate my flowers. Of course, make sure you have flowers at the end of each of your stems, just because that's how flowers, you know, often are. So you can start here at the end, just smush, smush, smush. I'm going to do 3 or 4 for each flower. Smushes. Smush, smush, smush. And again, make it nice and loose and random, like our final one here. Smush, smush. Continue that on the ends, and then I'll go back and I'll add some more to the stem areas. Go back and add them down lower on the stem just to add some more of this beautiful blue color. And I'm kind of, you know, focusing on the tops of the leaves just because, like, in my mind, that's where, you know, I don't really know. I'm not really sure what kind of flowers these are. I kind of made them up. But, you know, I always think of like leaves growing out from under the flower. So that's why I'm kind of focusing my buds over where the leaves are, just because it kind of makes sense to me in my mind.
So this was just the navy blue and the true blue mixed together.
It's navy blue and true blue. And I did about 1 part of each to get just something, you know, not quite so bright, but not quite so dark. Just a nice, you know, pretty medium blue.
And not with the water, just paint.
No water in that one. I did have, you know, water my brush still, but that's okay. I didn't water it down intentionally. So hold it up so you guys can see that. Okay, so now while we have this color out, this nice medium blue color, I actually need to mix a little more. I kind of used it all. So, but hopefully you guys have this nice medium blue color mixed. With the same brush, we're going to use the very tip of it. We're going to add a dark shadow back on our glass. So it's nice and dry now. So I'm going to use the very tip of my brush. I'm going to go all along the right side of that edge. Very carefully using the tip of my brush to add one more layer of shadow all along the right side. I'm gonna go all the way down, following the shadows we painted earlier, for like a nice dramatic line right there. And you could blend it if you feel like yours got a little bit too dramatic. You can kind of go back, you know, get most of the paint off and go back right to the left of it and kind of blend it in if you feel like maybe yours got a little too dark or a little too wide. That's okay too, but that'll just give it a little bit more drama and more depth. Give me just a second to catch up and then we'll do our background. I'm excited to show you guys the painting for next week. I can't believe it's going to be June already.
Hi.
Crazy. Okay, so now we're finally going to use this big brush that I mentioned at the beginning. We're going to grab our 3/4 inch flat brush or angle brush or, you know, 1/2 inch flat or 1 inch flat, whatever it is that you have. We're going to go ahead and grab this. This is the biggest of the brush that I have out. And remember when we made the sort of like muddy neutral color, we were mixing like most of our colors together. We're going to recreate that and we're going to use just a little bit of it. And you can see the difference here. So the reason we want to do that is this is just all pure white canvas behind our painting, which is pretty, right? It doesn't look bad. It's really bright white. But when you start adding some of this color, it's really a mixture of all the colors we've used in the painting. It just makes it much warmer and it makes it feel much more realistic. Can you guys see that there? So we're going to go ahead and we're going to kind of mix almost all the colors and very faintly, very watered down. We're going to add that to the back and it just makes our painting look a little bit more real and a little more balanced. Okay, so I got my big brush here. I'm going to grab a tiny bit of my cinnamon, a tiny bit of my clover, tiny bit of my navy blue, and a tiny bit of my true blue. And I'm going to grab some clean water and water that down. You guys see that color there? It's very muddy looking. Normally you wouldn't be going for this color, but just because it's the background, we just kind of want to like ground the whole painting. We're going to mix these all together. We're looking for this muddy color. Okay, so now I've got it in my brush and we're going to start light, just like we did in the beginning. You want to start light and you can always build up, but you can't take it away. I'm going to start on the top left. I'm just going to start brushing in. See that muddy color there? I'm just going to start brushing it in. And I'm going to go around my petals. I'm going to do my best. You don't want to touch the petals because you're going to end up picking up those blues and greens. But I'm just going to do my best to go around it here. And I know people are going to ask, well, couldn't you have just done this first and painted on top of it? And yes, you could have. But when I did my original painting, I just really liked the way it looked. How you could see those beautiful like pools of color that made it look really like a watercolor. Again, this is not watercolor. This is acrylic paint that we're using to look like watercolor. But when you start getting those pools of color and just those really organic lines and areas of color, it just really makes it look like watercolor. And so that's why we're doing it this way. And if you feel like you've got way too much color and it's getting really muddy, go ahead and add some water right onto your canvas and start spreading that out. You don't want it to be too dark. You want it to be, you know, almost barely noticeable. You can see here on my overhead camera, you barely can see it really. It's just adding a little bit more depth to the painting. I'm going to add it on the right side as well. I'm doing my best to go between. I'm kind of being, I don't want to say sloppy because that's not what we want it to be, but I'm just being like a little bit messy almost with it. I'm trying my best to go around it, but you just want it to be very like loose looking. And that's what's going to give you that beautiful watercolor look when you're finished.
So again, the background you made from the cinnamon and both blues that you had, true blue, navy blue, a little bit of clover, right? You used all four.
Yeah, you use all the colors.
Okay.
And if you feel like it's looking too blue, then add some cinnamon. If you feel like it's looking too warm, like brown, add some blue. We just wanted like a super neutral looking color that we then went and watered down substantially. You want to super duper water it down. You don't want to just be painting that, muddy mixture onto your canvas. You want it to just be like almost like, I hate to say this, it sounds bad, but almost just like dirty water. That's kind of what you're going for the background. And that's why you get this really pretty watercolory blended look behind it. Do you guys see that? It just sort of grounds the whole painting and gives it just an atmosphere, like it's actually sitting somewhere in real life. Does that make sense? As opposed to just floating in a white, perfectly crisp canvas abyss.
Makes sense.
And then guys, once you've done that, like I said, if it got a little bit dark, stop adding color and start adding clean water with your brush right onto your canvas. If you feel like you can't even see it, grab a little bit more color and start adding it in. But that is the final step for our painting. So make sure you sign it when you're done. And we are all done with our amber glass spud. So I hope you enjoyed that faux watercolor technique. It's very different than anything we've done so far in the Michael's Mini Classroom Paint Nights. But that's it.
That looks absolutely beautiful. Love it.
Thank you. I don't want to hold this one up because it's wet and I don't want it to drip. But yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Don't forget, every Monday night we do this class. Every Monday night, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. It'll be me or Kirsten Jones or Andy Jones. I always forget to have the same last name, and then when I go to say it, it sounds weird. They're not related. But one of us will be here every Monday night. Oftentimes, John is here to moderate. We have so much fun painting with you guys, whether it's your first time painting or even painting forever. We just always have a blast. Super beginner friendly. Invite your friends, send them the link. We have so much fun. And then next week, if you guys are familiar with our Plaid Crafts Facebook page, you'll know Emma Panuski, who's going to be making her paint night debut, doing this fun mixed media canvas just in time for summer. And this is called Sunset Bay. So we're really excited for this one. Emma is super excited to be here to teach it to you guys. Lots of beautiful blending going on. Some 3D elements using Mod Podge. So this is going to be a really fun one again.
So,
this coming Monday, same time. What were you saying, John?
yeah, I was going to say on that one, the Mod Podge Ultra, which is a spray version of Mod Podge, which is relatively new. It's been out a year or so, but a lot of people still don't know about it. That is one of the things she's going to be using for the painting. So if you plan to participate in real time, go ahead and get yourself some Mod Podge Ultra from Michael's ahead of next week.
And it's all on the supply list, so don't worry. Just go ahead and grab the supply list from the event listing, and you'll be all set. But yeah, it's going to be Emma next week, and she's super excited to be here. It'll be her first paint night with Michael's. She's done lots of daytime Michael's classes if you join us during the day, but it'll be her first paint night. So we're super excited for that. So guys, don't forget, if you're a member of our Let's Paint with Plaid Facebook group, go ahead and post your paintings in there. We'd love to see how they turned out. And if not, you can still go ahead and hashtag Plaid Crafts on Facebook and Instagram, and we can see it that way. And we'll see you next week.
Okay.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.